Hey, you guys, what's up? It's Chris with another car talk parking lot rant and review and my general thoughts on life. So, today is going to be a good one. I'm sure it's bound to really get some of you guys thinking. And this is something that I've thought about for a long time, and I wanted your thoughts and opinions. Oh, and by the way, we are at the Dartmouth Mall parking lot on the movie side, right where AMC Theater is. And got to plug the Dunks. Love me some Dunks. If you're from New England, you know what that's all about. Anyway, I know they don't sponsor me. But anyway, so there's something I was just thinking about the other day that affects everybody all over this country. And this is going to get a little political. I can already hear you guys collectively rolling your eyes in the back of your head going, oh God, here we go. But I think it's a good topic because, like I said, it affects everybody. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, however you identify politically. And that's the fact of taxes, particularly property taxes. That's something I was thinking about. For so many of us, part of the American dream is to own your own home someday. And this is something that is becoming increasingly more difficult to do for a lot of people because of inflation. So the cost of buying homes is going up all over the country. In Massachusetts, it's bad. It's really high. Last time I checked, the average house goes for something around almost $800,000 or higher, which is absolutely ridiculous. And that brings me back to the taxes thing, particularly property tax. And as I'm sure most of you know, if you own any kind of property, you have to pay taxes on it. And if you don't, they seize your property. I said to myself, geez, what does that sound like? That sounds like something the mob would do. The mob comes over and tells you, hey, you got to pay us protection money. And you're like, for what? So we don't break your legs, burn down your establishment, whatever. Okay. So millions of Americans all over this country pay property tax under the threat of their property being seized. Okay? Now, my question is, and I really do want to hear everybody's opinion on this, is how is this fair? And I know some of you say, well, taxes go towards state taxes anyway. Those imposed by the states go towards, paying the state workers, infrastructure, something. And I understand that. But you pay state taxes on everything you buy. You pay taxes out of your paycheck, okay? And property tax is just imposed just because. Now, if they had saved the taxes for you, right, for a rainy day, like say, when you need to replace your roof, for example, that'd be one thing. Wouldn't that be nice if we lived in a perfect world where they say, well, all these taxes you pay us every year, we put it in an account for you, right? And, an escrow or something, and it gains interest. And then when it comes time for you to fix your house, because everything needs fixing sooner or later, you have the money. But no, that's not it. It just goes into whatever politician's pocket or whatever they supposedly do with it, right? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, okay, so what a scam. Inflation, right, made your house jump up like double, quadruple in value. So, let's go back, say, I don't know, 5-10 years, right? Your house was, say, estimated to be worth around $200,000, right? Now all of a sudden, because of inflation and everything now, and here in Massachusetts there's a housing crisis shortage. So now your house goes from say $200,000 to say $700,000. And now you have to pay property tax on your property that is estimated at $700,000. And what this is doing, this is breaking the bank for a lot of people, and it's forcing people out of their homes, which is exactly what they want. And I said to myself, man, this is messed up. So the American dream was like, oh, I want to get married, have kids, own my own home, white picket fence, dog, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And you work so hard. The average mortgage is 30 years. So 30 years you're busting your butt to pay this mortgage, plus interest, okay? Because obviously the bank is involved. So now you're paying interest on this loan. You finally pay that last bit of money. The mortgage is paid off. You got the deed to the home that says, this is my property. Ha, I did it. But it's not. Because now your local government steps in and says, well, you got to pay property tax, and if you don't, we're going to take your house. And I'm like, oh, hold on. If this is my property and I own the deed to this property and the bank is no longer involved because I've completely paid off the loan with interest, got to keep driving that point home, who the heck are you to say you're going to seize my property if I don't pay money up to you? I'm sorry, but that just sounds like embezzlement to me. That is exactly what the mob does. And I honestly feel that your federal and local government is nothing more than a legalized version of the mob. They employ the same tactics that the mob does. And if you don't believe me, look up all the statutes, right, that are against the law pertaining to the mob and everything, and tell me that your government doesn't do the exact same thing. And I'm telling you, the only reason why they crack down on the mob is because the mob isn't giving Uncle Sam their cut. If the mob paid taxes, I guarantee you the government would leave the mob alone. So, I don't know about you guys, but this infuriates me because, I could see it I could understand it if they said, okay, you're going to pay property tax for the life of the loan. Okay, so you get a 30-year mortgage, right? And for 30 years, you're not only, again, paying interest to the bank, but you're paying property tax. Okay, that's 30 years of property tax. And your mortgage can go up at any given time because, again, inflation. So anytime within that 30 years, if your property is estimated to go up in value, you're going to pay more in property tax. So now, you've paid 30 years worth of property tax that fluctuates, right? I think after 30 years, hey, I paid my dues. You should be left alone. You shouldn't have to pay any more taxes on your property. Nobody should be able to come and say, hey, we're going to seize your property. Because as a property owner, as I'm sure you know, you are solely responsible for everything to do with that property. You got to do all the groundskeeping, all the landscaping, because, if you let your grass grow too high and all this other stuff, all of a sudden now the city can step in and start fining you and all this other stuff. Everything has to be up to code, plumbing, electric, all this other stuff. Anything goes wrong in that house needs to be repaired. You, the land owner, the property owner, have to pay it, okay? The state doesn't step in at all to help you with this. And I'm like, so not only do I have to maintain this property for the entire time that I'm living here, but I got to pay these property tax. I'm sorry, to me, it's theft. It's theft from the American taxpayer. It's theft, plain and simple. And it's just a strong arm tactic to scare people into doing what the government wants you to do. And my question, the other question is as Americans across the board, why do we put up with this? And this is where it gets really interesting now, because I know some of what I'm going to say is going to sound a little, rebellious or whatever. And hey, it is what it is. But everybody, always says, oh, you can't fight City Hall, you can't fight the government, which to me is total bullcrap. And that's exactly what they want you to think, so we keep tucking our tail between our legs and just dealing with whatever bullcrap comes down the pipeline, and whatever taxes and this and that, whatever they want to impose on us. Oh, we just got to pay it up to the almighty Caesar because you can't fight City Hall and whatever. Mind you, we're the ones who vote. Our mayors, our governors, city councilors, sheriffs, all these other people, presidents, vice presidents, all this. We vote for these people. They're supposed to work for us. Okay? Now, look it up. And I understand that there's a difference between federal and local government, but the Constitution says that if at any given time our government becomes tyrannical, it is our duty as U.S. citizens under a republic, okay, not a democracy, but a republic, to overthrow the government if it no longer serves the interests of the people. Now, I'm sorry, but Democrat, Republican, liberal, alike, it doesn't matter. I think most people could agree that your federal and local government is no longer serving in the best interests of the people. Okay? What I've observed in almost my 50 years of being on this planet is that it doesn't matter if you're black or white, gay, straight, whatever your religious ethnicity is, whatever, Democrat, Republican, nobody's ever happy with the government. The government screws everybody over. Everybody's forced to pay into the system. Nobody's exempt. Everybody is getting screwed over by the system. And we're angry about it, and rightfully so. But what do? We fight amongst ourselves. We will protest and riot and burn down our own neighborhoods and all this other crap. And it's like, what are we doing? Why aren't we focusing our anger on the real enemy, which is our federal and local governments that are imposing these laws and these taxes and all this other stuff that have got us so worked up and so angry all the time, that got us working 50, 60 hours a week, plus a side hustle and blah, 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 blah. Now, I want you to really sit there and think about this. At any given time in this country, you have more armed citizens than you have police and military combined, which is one of the reasons why they're always trying to get rid of the Second Amendment and always trying to get you to give up your guns. And they play on your emotions every time there's some kind of mass shooting, which I personally believe some of these are staged, but that's another topic. And, okay, so we'll play Call of Duty, right, and sit here and blow crap up all day, and we'll fight amongst ourselves and go burn down, stores and shopping malls and whatever else, and throw bricks at people, at cops and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Sit there and sit there in the middle of a highway and run the risk of getting run over because, we don't believe in big oil and all this. The anger is there. It's just being misdirected. Our efforts are being misdirected. I personally believe that no government entity should have the right to come in and take your property. If you have paid that property, you didn't miss any of your payments. Nobody should be able to take your home. Nobody should be able to take your guns. Okay? Just like, if let's say you ride a motorcycle, right? And some people want to wear helmets, some people don't. Now, do I think wearing a helmet's a good idea? Yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, it couldn't hurt. But you got those people who don't believe in it. Okay, why should the government step in and be able to tell you, oh, you have to wear a helmet, and if you don't, we're going to impose a fine? It's my motorcycle. I pay for the motorcycle. I pay taxes that go towards the roads that I'm driving on, not to mention the same taxes that pay the police officer's salary. Who the heck are you to tell me I have to wear a helmet? Okay? If, God forbid, you get into a motorcycle accident and you die, and it's determined, well, he might have lived if he had worn a helmet, well, okay, you're dead. What difference does it make? What are you going to do? Come back from the grave and sue them? Like, honestly, it's like wearing a seatbelt. It's my car. It's everybody in this day and age, oh, my body, my choice. Okay, well, if you have the right to kill your unborn child in the womb, then I should have the right to wear a seatbelt or not wear a seatbelt and not get a ticket for it. I mean, you see where I'm coming from, people? I mean, am I being, unreasonable here? Or do you think I'm actually onto something here? Because for me, this was a serious, aha, light bulb moment. And, think about this. If everybody just in one state, let's take Massachusetts, for example, said, we're not paying property taxes anymore. That's it. We're not paying it. When the time comes and taxes are due, we're not going to do it. Absolutely refuse. I don't care what anybody says. Imagine this. Imagine if you could get everybody in the entire state to do this, or even just half the state. What are they going to do? Honestly, what are they going to? Are they going to foreclose on every single property simultaneously? They're going to evict every single person simultaneously. Are you kidding me right now? Not to mention, like I said, you have all these people who legally own firearms, never mind the ones who have them illegally that aren't registered, right? So you got all these guns floating around. Why are we so afraid to use them? I mean, like, and I know how this sounds, and I'm not advocating for violence. I'm not saying, oh, let's just go and shoot up City Hall and this. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not suggesting that. But me personally, I feel as that if I were a property owner and I didn't owe a mortgage anymore, my mortgage is paid off, I have the deed to the house, and I say I'm not paying, screw that, I'm not paying your property tax anymore. You come to my house and try to forcibly take my home over my dead body. And I realize the rational sane person doesn't want to go to war. I understand that. And I get that. That's fine. War is ugly. It's nasty. There's nothing glorious or beautiful about war. It's a horrible thing. But unfortunately, it's sometimes a necessary evil when you're being oppressed. And if you look all throughout history, okay, you always had some group of idiots who wanted to rule over another group of people for whatever reasons, right? And those people are like, yo, man, leave us alone. We ain't bothering nobody. We're just doing our own thing. We ain't messing with you. Why are you bothering us? And then they're like, oh, we're just going to take your land or whatever it is, or, we don't agree with your religion, or we don't like the color of your skin, whatever the excuse was for trying to overthrow these people. And so what happened? They said, you know what? Nah, this ain't going to fly. And they're like, we don't want to go to war. We don't want to die, but, this is our freedom we're talking about. We're not going to deal with your crap. So what did they do? They grabbed their swords, they grabbed their guns, whatever it was they needed, and they went to war. I mean, this country is fighting wars all the time, okay? And we have our brave men and women in the military who go to war willingly for this country over, I'm sorry, bullcrap reasons. And this is nothing against our men and women in the armed forces. God bless them. They are amazing. But I honestly feel that our soldiers are being lied to, and they are going into war just to make rich men richer. They're going to war not over freedom, not over tyranny, because they're being lied to by the government, and all we're doing is these political power moves, and we're taking over certain areas because of the oil and whatever else. And that's the truth. And you may not want to believe it, but it is. And a lot of you are starting to wake up to that fact. I mean, when you have men and women come back from Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Afghanistan, wherever they, were stationed, and they're telling you, look, this is bullcrap. Don't believe what they're telling you in the news. I spent 2 tours guiding an oil pipeline. Well, okay, something's up. Who do you think I'm going to believe? CNN, NBC, or am I going to believe the soldier that just came back from active duty? So I think that as citizens, we really need to step up and say, look, I like my cushy lifestyle. I like my Xbox and my Uber Eats and all this other stuff, which is, hey, it's all good. But, you are living under tyranny. I mean, I hate to say it like that because, we are very blessed in this country. But I don't think it's right. Nobody should have the right to come and say, I'm taking your house because you don't want to pay money up to me. That's just wrong. It's wrong. And if I were to do that to my neighbor and say, hey, I need new tires for my car, and I need you to kick in a couple $100 for me to get new tires for my car. My neighbor would be like, yeah, right, dude, whatever. And if I kept pushing the issue, they would call the cops and I'd be arrested and I'd be charged, and rightfully so. How is that any different? You know what I mean? Just because your local or federal government makes something a law doesn't mean that that law is actually lawful and should be obeyed. You know, it's like the people who've challenged income tax. There are people who said, no, I'm not paying income tax. And of course, they got all the threats from the IRS and, you know, threats to be imprisoned and put in jail and all this other stuff. And when push came to shove, they went to court. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and guess what? They won the case because, whether you believe it or not, there's no actual law on the books that says you have to pay income tax. It's a scam that our federal government has been running on us forever and a day now. Look this up. This is a real thing. So there you have it. That's pretty much the gist of it. And I think that if we're willing to commit violence towards one another over abortion, over race, over religion, you know, whatever it is, perceived prejudices, whether it's a George Floyd issue or whatever it is, right? And we're willing to go so far as to, you know, destroy our own communities. Well, wait a second. There's a big, giant, evil monster that's screwing all of us over, regardless of our race, our religion, our political views, and that's your local government and your federal government. So I think we should take some of that energy that we put into all this rioting and all this other stuff and this protesting and actually take up arms. Yeah, I said it. And overthrow these entities. Because like I said, if everybody, you know, like, and you pick any topic, you pick anything. Oh, we're sick and tired of how much gas costs. Okay. Well, think about the upheaval that, again, you could cause if you just got everybody in your state for one day to not buy any gas. Okay, look at it like this. You got companies, right? They're, you know, they don't like, you know, the policies and procedures of the company. What do? They go on strike, right? Okay. And it effectively shuts stuff down. So now the companies, they're like, oh man, what are we going to do? You know, we can't manufacture whatever, we can't provide whatever services, yada, 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 because everybody's on strike. Nobody's coming in. First, second, third shift, nobody's coming in. They're not budging. Well, we're going to have to meet with them, and we're going to have to try and meet their demands or whatever. This is how you get stuff done. Okay? Now, unfortunately, sometimes a peaceful strike, a peaceful protest doesn't always get it done. Sometimes, and again, I hate to say this, there is a time where you have to take up arms and you got to go to war, literally for your country, for your freedoms. And again, I'm not suggesting just go around shooting up whatever and, you know, you see somebody that works for your federal or local government, let's kill them. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about when they send in the police, all right, when they send in certain people to say, we're taking your car, we're taking your property, this and that, the stuff that you've worked for so hard. No, you're not. Okay? And this idea of, you know, you can't fight City Hall, you can't fight the government, is total and complete BS, and that's what they want because there's so few of them and so many of us. And there are power in numbers. And they need us, these elites, okay, all these, you know, these bankers and all these company owners and all that, they need us. We are the worker bees. We are the ones that get up every day and go to work, and, you know, and the textile factories and the retail companies and the sewers and the, you know, electric companies and all this other stuff. Without us to build and maintain the infrastructure, what are these elitists and these government officials going to do? Okay, and if it's our tax dollars and everything that are funding them, okay, we have the power within our dollar. And by that I mean, if, for example, you think the gallon of a gallon of milk costs too much money now, right? Which it is pretty ridiculous. Well, what if everybody just said, well, we're not going to buy milk anymore? And I know it's easier said than done because you're like, wait a minute, you know, I got a baby and this and that and so on and so. I understand it's not the easiest thing in the world. That's why, you know, you got to get uncomfortable sometimes and bleed for the cause. It may mean you got to get up off your ass in plain English and put down the Xbox controller and actually fight for, a quality of life, not just in the present, but in the future. Your kids and their kids. So now if everybody just didn't buy gas or didn't buy milk for one single day, that's going to send a loud message to the milk companies, the gas companies are going to go, whoa, wait a second. We don't buy their product, their profits go down. And believe you me, that's their biggest fear. When you disrupt the flow of manufacturing, okay, when you disrupt that profit margin and it starts to plummet and their stocks start to plummet, that's when you get their attention. That's what I'm talking about. So now if we say, look, the cost of gas is too high, the cost of milk, whatever it may be, is too freaking high. We're not paying this anymore. What are they going to do? They're going to have to come to terms with it, and they're going to have a sit down with us and say, look, all right, what do you want? Well, we want, a gallon of milk to be $1.99 again, or whatever it was. But we want, 1980s, 1990s prices again. And don't tell me you can't do it, because you guys were making millions and billions of dollars back then. So what's the problem? I mean, when I first got my license, gas was under $1 a gallon, people. And big oil and gas was making millions and billions of dollars back then. So don't sit here and tell me, oh, it's necessary that gas is $3.50 or more a gallon. That's total crap. Okay? So, anyway, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I mean, I think you get the gist of it at this point. And again, I'm not, please don't think that I'm sitting here telling you, oh, go and commit violent acts towards people. And I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, I know no matter what I say, somebody's going to take it and twist it, take it out of context or whatever. And that's fine. I am not advocating for violence. I'm not saying that anybody should get a gun and just go randomly shooting at certain people or whatever just because you disagree with them politically or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that just as we'll go to war in foreign countries because there is a perceived threat to our democracy or whatever it is, right, our way of life, then, well, the Constitution talks about enemies both foreign and domestic. So if your local government is imposing things on you that are directly threatening your way of life, like, hey, I'm going to become homeless because you keep raising the property tax, that's an issue. Okay, and I think there comes a point in time where, yeah, you have the absolute right as a U.S. citizen to defend yourself because they're going to send the sheriff and the cops or whoever, and they're going to have guns. See what I'm saying? So anyway, that's that, and I definitely would love to hear what you guys think about this. Have a good day, guys. Talk to you later.